Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Well, it may have taken Simon Rodia 33 years to build the Watts Towers, but everything that has been built around it has made an incredible impact for almost a century. I'm delighted to be joined by the longtime executive director and wonderful artist herself, Rosie Lee Hooks. So great to have you here. You know, I think people think of the Watts Towers and they understand the landmark, but what is surrounding the towers and the Watts Towers Arts Center has really become such an integral part of what this place offers in such a wide array of genres of art. It's remarkable. What do you think people don't really know about what happens here?
Well, I think there's a lot that people don't know about. Local people know about us, but many people in Los Angeles have not even been here. They don't know about us. When they hear Watts, they think 1965 rebellion. That's all they think. But once they get here, they are so surprised to see what offerings we have here. We have the Watts Towers, who are 100 years old, and we have the Watts Towers Art Center that's 60 years old. We have the Charles Mingus Youth Art Center that we built in 2008, and we have a garden studio where we teach gardening and husbandry and tiling. So there's a lot going on here on this campus that was inspired by Simon Rodia, who built the towers. Had he not built the Watts Towers, and by the way, he didn't call them the Watts Towers, he called them Nuestro Pueblo. He came to Watts, of all places, to build these towers. Now, he had a choice of two places that he was looking at. They're both triangular shape, and they're headed east. The other property that he was looking at is right at Santa Monica in Wilshire, where the Beverly Hilton Hotel is. And we know if he had built them there, they would have torn them down.
I was going to say, wouldn't be there anymore.
They wouldn't be there anymore. So he came here because he wanted many people to see what he was doing. So when he moved here, there was a train track right here north of us, and that's actually how he bent the steel to go in the towers. And there is still the train out here that comes by every day. So the red car used to come right by here, and things would fall off the train, and he would use the train tracks to actually bend the steel to go on the Watts Towers. And then after Simon left, he worked on the towers for 33 years, and when he finished in he didn't finish, he stopped. In 1954, he gave the towers and the deed to the towers to a neighbor, Mr. Sorcito. Mr. Sorcito, and Simon moved up to Martinez, California. He has a sister there who has children, so he moved up there with his sister. Mr. Sorcito kept the towers for a while and sold them to Mr. Montoya for $500. And Mr. Montoya wanted to, I think, before Mr. Montoya went down to get a permit to turn the towers into a commercial venue, Mr. Sorcito had also gone down to get a permit, and the city said, well, what is that thing? There is no permit. Of course, Simon didn't get a permit to build the towers. So there was a demolition order placed on it in 1956, I think. And so when he gave them to Mr. Sorcito kept them for about, I think, 3 months. Mr. Montoya bought them to turn it into a commercial venue. He went down and they said, oh no, there's a demolition order on that thing, so we won't give you a permit to do anything. They have to come down. So Mr. Montoya, who was a dairy farmer, he sat on it for a while. In the meantime, there were a couple of students, film students from USC.
Okay.
Mr. Hale, William Hale, was a filmmaker, film student, and he came and filmed Simon, and he went back, and Bill Cartwright also was a film student, and Bill saw it and came down and found Mr. Montoya in 1959 and bought the towers for $3,000. He and Nick King. Nick King was a photographer and also an actor, and his wife, of course, also Carol Cartwright, was the owner of the the towers. So, and Bill told me the story that, he came, he bought the towers, he was so excited about the towers. And Carol was having the baby, so he went to the hospital. Carol, guess what I just bought you? I bought you the Watts Towers. She says, Watts Towers, Schmosh Towers. I'm having a baby here. Who cares about the Watts Towers? So that's a funny story that I really enjoyed with Bill. And his son is still working with the Committee for Simon Rodea Towers in Watts. They started that committee to be caretakers of the Watts Towers. They were curators and artists and filmmakers, really very well-known people, very accomplished people who cared about the existence of the Watts Towers. So they started the Committee for Simon Rodea Towers in Watts. So Bill went down to get the permit for to build a caretaker's house. City said no, there's a demolition order on those towers. So on the Committee for Simon Rodea Towers in Watts was Bud Goldstone, who was an aerospace engineer. So they asked Bill to design a test, stress test, to show the city that the towers could take on the earthquakes and anything else, high winds and anything else that came about. So they tied a cable to the tallest tower, which is 99.5 feet, and the cable came down to the truck to pull the towers over. Instead of pulling the towers over, it tipped the truck over. So that's how we got our staying power, and it's only, 18 inches in the ground.
Okay.
So Simon did a phenomenal job of building those towers. He was a towel setter, but he also knew a lot about architecture, apparently, because of the way he built those towers. So with the Committee for Simon Rodea Towers coming in and finally getting that permit,
right.
And the community said, okay, well, you care about the towers. What about the community? And that's when the Watts Towers Art Center first classes were started in 1959, and they were taught on the foundation of Simon's home by Lucille Krasny. She was the first teacher there. So that's how the Watts Towers Art Center started, and it has expanded since then. And the first director was Noah Purifoy, and Noah, of course, was a very accomplished assemblage artist. And since then, we've just had master artists.
I was going to say we're surrounded by some of the most remarkable and eclectic styles of art, and also if you walk around the times of the art. So you have, over the years, had incredible talent, with visual art as part of this center. But you've expanded beyond just visual art into, music and all kinds of things.
Absolutely. Well, we're into the 39th annual Watts Towers Day of the Drum Festival, and the 44th annual Simon Rodea Watts Towers Jazz Festival. We're the oldest festivals of their kind, still standing. And music is very, very important part of our curriculum. We are still teaching music. We have Nedra Wheeler, who is a phenomenal bassist, who is teaching piano and music. We also have a partnership with Cal Arts, a piano program and vocal program with Cal Arts. So music has been a rich part of our history here, with Buddy Collette being involved. And again, our building, one of our buildings is the Charles Mingus Youth Art Center. So we have the Watts Towers Art Center, and Charles Mingus Youth Art Center and Garden Studio. Charles Mingus lived one street over. Many people don't know that Charles Mingus lived in Watts and grew up in Watts.
Huge jazz phenomenon.
Huge. And in his book, he mentions watching Simon Rodea build the towers as he was a kid. Right. Now, Charles Mingus and Buddy Collette met at Jordan High School. They both went to Jordan High School, and Buddy told me the story where they used to take the red train back home, and Buddy would have his saxophone, and Mingus would have a bass or cello, and they'd play on the red car, but they had to get it straight before they came home because they didn't want the parents to know they're showing out on the train over there. But when they got on, the people were, hey, let's hear some music here. So they grew up in Watts, producing all of that phenomenal music. And we have so many musicians coming from Watts. Locke High School is right here on 108th Street. Out of Locke High School, you have Patrice Rushen, Ndugu Chancellor, Paul Jackson Jr., the whole horn section of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Tyrese, we have so many musicians coming from this area, and visual artists. Well, our visual artist history reads like a list of stars.
Who's who?
Yeah, who's who? You know, Betty Starr, Allison Starr, John Otterbridge, who was one of our phenomenal directors here, Art Center directors here. Mark Greenfield was one of our directors here, who is a wonderful artist. Judson Powell was here with Noah Purifoy. So Charles Dixon was here and still is here. And if there is a visual artist or a musician who's been a part of us or been teaching, they are always available to us until they leave this earth. Right. Kenzie Shirakawa was one of our artists in residence, and Kenzie passed away some months ago, but he taught us how he designed our garden with Dominique Moody. And the story with Kenzie is Kenzie used to be Marlon Brando's gardener for 20 years. So when we chose Kenzie, not only is he a phenomenal visual artist, but he helped us design our garden here. So we have so many artists who are available to us to provide leadership in museum and art education for our community. And we fight hard for this museum and art education because all our children need is a chance.
The fact that this place has made such an impact over the last 6 decades, and if you want to include everything that, you know, the towers have added to people's understanding of the power of art over the last 100 years, you know, it continues. You're talking about the people that are working here now and everything that they are doing.
Yeah, it continues. We pass it on. I feel like it's an honor to work here at the Watts Towers Arts Center campus because of the history, the foundation that has been laid, and the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs is very supportive and provides much leadership for us to continue to survive and provide museum and art education to our campus and to our community. We are surrounded by a lot of gangs, Bloods, Crips, Fifth Hill, 10th Line, 107th Street Badass Gangsters, all of them, and they're all welcome here on this campus. There is no competition. It's all nurturing. We nurture our children. We love our children. And the same, our families are just as committed as our children are, and that's very important to engage our parents. My children don't have to pay for any classes here on our campus. We advocate strongly for that because art is not something that is in our budgets down here because we just have other priorities. So one of the things I require of the students is 10 hours of community service. Oh. And that community service is usually done in the garden. So we schedule garden days where our families and the children come out and we weed, we cut, we clean the turtle pond. We have a turtle pond. We have about 40 turtles there. Oh, we had about 100 babies this year. Oh, no. And we have one for teenagers for the babies and then one for the bigger ones. We have one tortoise that looks very prehistoric. The children love and the families love to see it. When we get here for work in the morning, there are mothers with the strollers or fathers with the killed children looking at the turtles. It's very soothing to watch them in our turtle pond. And within the garden also, we teach tiling because that's our heritage. Sure. Simon taught us how to tile, so we teach tiling out there in the garden studio along with gardening and husbandry and all of that.
You're an actress, you're a performer, you've had a very rich life in terms of, understanding the power of art and what it can do. What have you seen happen around here with art? Because sometimes those who don't understand an art or an art temperament don't realize that it's not about being famous and it's not about showing off or whatever, that there's something that intrinsically shifts in a person when they open themselves up. What have you seen happen here?
Well, one of the things that happens here is, especially during the festival, we are surrounded by a lot of homeless people or houseless people. I'm not sure what the right description is for our families who are living on the street now, but our community is full of them. And we engage them because they are our families. They're on hard times. It's like Simon. Simon built the towers out of recycling. Right. He was recycling before it was vogue to recycle. He and Dr. George Washington Carver, they were recycling already. So I see us as being recycled sometimes, and that's how I'm able to include a lot of the homeless people because, just because you're having a hard time doesn't mean you can be thrown away. You're still very valuable and we can put those pieces back together. So during the festival, we hire at least about 35 homeless people to help us during the days, logistically set up and keep the campus clean and do all these things.
The Jazz Festival.
The Jazz Festival, the Drum Festival, the day of the Drum Festival and the Jazz Festival. Okay. It's usually 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And of course, we give them badges to put on because they're part of the staff. They wear those badges all year long. Oh. And it's just so wonderful to see them feeling like I am somebody. I am needed. I am respected, and we really enjoy the fact that they hang around the Watts Towers because it is an artistic campus, the Watts Towers Art Center, all the murals that we have here. So we see that shift with the homeless people and understanding they want to take care of this campus. In fact, one of the women said to me about 3 months ago when we couldn't have the festival. Miss Rosie, they call me Miss Rosie. Miss Rosie, we have to have the festival. I said, look, we can't do it because, we're in a pandemic and, people have to wear masks, they have to social distance and all. Well, don't worry, we'll make them wear the mask. I said, but you don't even have a mask on. But that's how committed they are to being a part of this campus and being a part of art. And as I said before, my young people who come here, they are transformed. And we take families. Some of, we usually take children beginning at 7 years old, but usually there's a family, and we sneak that little 5-year-old in when we can, and they grow up here on this campus and take all of the classes and go to high school and go to college, and we hire them right back because we see how influenced they have been and how productive they can be by what they're learning, and the whole tiling, learning to tile, learning to work with that cement and put those images together is just a phenomenal thing. So people are transformed by art. It's an outlet. Especially now with this pandemic, we need an outlet, an artistic outlet, and that's what we provide for our parents. We have celebrations going on around the 100th anniversary and the 60th anniversary, and we have a partnership with LACMA and on a project called It's a Family Affair. And the objective of that project was to get art kits so that our families can pick them up, and they did about 200 art kits for us, wonderful art kits, so that the families can either do art together but get away from technology. It has nothing to do with technology. Turn it off. You don't have to be on Zoom right now or Google. Turn it off, and here's your art kit. Do what you want to do. As a family, or as an individual, go over by yourself to do it. But that's how art gives us a place to be and a place to just leave all of these circumstances that we have no control over. Circumstances keep changing. So we got to find some joy somewhere. So we find a lot of that joy in the artistic activities that we provide.
You mentioned earlier about, there is some upheaval that has happened in this area over the decades, et cetera, and that may be what people think of. But how safe this complex is and how revered it is and how it has actually survived in scenarios in which other places would not have survived. What do you attest that to? Why do you think it's held in such, in such a sacred place in people's hearts?
Because the community is totally involved here. The community.
So there's no separation.
There's no separation of church and state, of community in us, because it is a community art center. We are very governed by our support groups who've been here much longer than I have. The Watts Towers Community Action Council, Friends of the Watts Towers Art Center, parents of the Watts Towers Art Center, and youth. We have a youth board too. So we are in constant contact with our community in designing activities and producing events on this campus. Without the community, we would not be here. The community takes care of this place. We have murals all around the building, as you see, phenomenal murals. We just had one, Alonzo Davis's mural, Michael Massenberg, and two of our students refurbished the mural. But we have plenty of murals on our campus, and graffiti is going on morning, noon, and night, all around us. Not one of our murals have been tagged in these 60 years. Now that's major.
Why have you stayed so long? I mean, because I know that this wasn't necessarily, you weren't even that familiar necessarily with LA when you first arrived, but you have really dug in and you have really committed your heart and soul to this place. Why do you stay? What is it that you have learned or have garnered or gained in your existence that makes you want to stay?
I'm a people person. I'm a community person. I am an artist. Yeah. I came from back east, born in Alabama, saw the KKK when I was 5 years old, marched in front of my house, burned across the street at my school. I went to Catholic school because they didn't want the white fathers and sisters teaching us. I remember seeing them. They weren't on horses then. They were in cars with the dunce caps, those white things and the robes, and they sat in cars with the light on and drove and paraded down the street. Some walked with the burning torches and all. And I saw that when I was a little girl. It's just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, which is the seat of the civil rights movement. So I'm affected by that stuff. I come from a large family. My father was a storyteller. My mother said he was just lying, but he was a storyteller. And I found out when I finally left, I went to Florida after Alabama. And after Florida, I went to Washington, D.C. with the job. And I found out later when I was working at the Smithsonian Institution that John Lomax, the folklorist, had recorded my grandfather and one of my aunts. And I found this book that these folklorists had done at the University of Alabama, a picture of my grandfather, a picture of one of my aunts, 3 of my grandfather's stories, which was major for me. I didn't find this out until I'm a grown person. When I came to DC, and then I went from educational projects to University Research Corporation because the contract changed, but I was still doing that. But I became interested in acting. And so I auditioned for a theater company that was being started in Washington, D.C., the D.C. Black Repertory Theater Company, which was a second company, professional company started by Robert Hooks and Doug, and 3 of them started the Negro Ensemble Company in New York that was professional level theater company. So he came to DC to start a theater company, and I was very shy and introverted. I didn't really talk loud. In needing to go outside of myself, I decided, well, maybe I'll go try this, and did, and enjoyed it, and became an actor at the same time. I became the coordinator of training for the actors in the company, so I had to hire teachers. And then when I moved out here, I got married while I was over there, and then moved out here to LA, and eventually went to work for the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs. And we had the traditional arts department in the cultural affairs department under the community arts division. So they had been trying to put on the Festival of Philippine Arts and Culture, the Philippine Arts Festival, it was called at the time, but they couldn't get it done. They had been trying 20 years. I was a new guy on the block. Oh, let's let Rosie do it. They didn't know that I really had the skills to do that. Well, I went in there and, organized the community, very community driven, organized the community, made myself chair of the committee, and I produced the first 3 Festival of Philippine Arts and Cultures. I produced the first 3 Cuban cultural festivals. I produced the Armenian Festival, the Tango Festival, just a bunch of mariachi festivals, Secrets of the Sun, jazz mentorship. So I'm very skilled in producing those events, but it takes a lot of understanding and respect for community involvement and input. And I actually designed, the first Central Avenue Jazz Festival. Wow. I produced in 1996. And the good news is I'm a filmmaker, so I filmed them. So we got the documentation. Nobody can say where this festival will come except for here. Here's the documentation for it. But I designed that Central Avenue Festival on what I had learned at the Smithsonian about the components, the important parts of Black culture in our lives, the church, the marketplace, and all the secular and sacred activities around that. And that's basically what our festivals here on campus are, reflecting these different areas. So my drive and my lust for knowledge, it comes from appreciating culture and appreciating who individuals are, no matter who your culture is or where you come from. It's important. And respecting people. I learned to respect people a lot. So I get my chutzpah from my foundation, my father, my mother, my grandfather, my grandfather and my grandmother had 16 children, and one of those children was recorded over at the Smithsonian. It was so interesting to see that I'm working with Alan Lomax and Bess Haas Lomax, and their father had recorded my grandfather. Right. I mean, what a small world. So that's where I get my enthusiasm and my need to be involved with people and to make people feel as comfortable as I can in who they are.
On that note, I think one of the great things is that there are going to be people who are going to have conversations at points in time, and you will be the touch point that they will have in common and the impact that you and this place has made. So thank you so much for sharing your story, for all of your remarkable work, and I can't wait to see what the next 60 years is.
Ooh. Well, I've been here 150 years already.
Oh, so. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the foundation we've laid, the partnerships we've made and continue to have for our community, because this community is so worth it. Our parents and our children are so worth it. Yeah. And I'm just smitten. I'm smitten and thankful to be a part of this whole venture here in Watts to maintain museum and our art education and provide it through professionals. We don't do mediocre. That's one of our mottos. We have several mottos around here.
Right.
One is we don't do mediocre because we don't have to. Another one is if I stick to it, I can do it. Meaning Simon did it all by himself for 33 years. If I stick to it, I can do it also.
All right, I'm going to take those with me. It was really wonderful to chat with you, Rosie. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And that's a wrap on this Creative LA Currents.